Hey everyone, it's Laz from Dataset, and today we'll be talking about the best approach to take when rolling out Power BI at an enterprise scale. So, if you are in the process of rolling out Power BI or about to start, keep watching as we'll be exploring the 3 Power BI deployment approaches. Now, just before we jump into the deployment approaches, let's first explore the issues that are common amongst organizations when rolling out Power BI. Now, time and time again, I see the same things being said. Why are these numbers different? Which workspace has the right report? What's the difference between a workspace and an app? And even though the issues are many, as we can see from the slide on the screen now, the funny thing is that these seem to stem from the same place, and that is a lack of preparation and a lack of planning when initially rolling out Power BI. Now, many see Power BI as a tool that can do it all due to its incredible growth in the market, its continuous features being upgraded on a monthly basis. Therefore, it's not surprising that some people have the mentality that this will solve all our issues, but of course, nothing can solve all our issues, and certainly what is needed is that planned approach. This image highlights it pretty well. We love Power BI and we want it now. And this is what we see, that many want to roll out Power BI to everyone right away, give them full control, right? But we are asking for trouble. What we should be doing is choosing a single team, department, and only starting with them and highlighting the issues. Then change the process to accommodate these issues with solutions, then start to roll out to more teams and more departments in the organization as well. So again, it comes back to having that planned approach in place. Okay, so we now have a good understanding of the common issues, and I'm sure you are all asking, yes, Laz, we know these issues, but how can I go ahead and reduce them from occurring when rolling out Power BI? Well, that's when the 3 Power BI deployment approaches come into play. So we first have corporate BI. And this is where IT has full control of both the Power BI datasets and the reports and dashboards. So here, the business are pure report consumers, nothing else. We then have the second approach, which is IT-led self-service. And this is the starting phase now of giving control back to the business, as the business can now create their own reports and dashboards. However, IT still has full control of the Power BI datasets. And the last approach is BusinessLed SelfService, and here we give even further control back to the business, as now not only can they create their own reports, but they can also create their own Power BI datasets too. Now, I can imagine many of you may have raised an eyebrow on that last approach. The business to create their own datasets. Business-led self-service is not a mandatory approach. In fact, jumping here too quickly or unnecessarily certainly can do more damage than good. So with that said, let's now go ahead and jump into the detail. We start with corporate BI. Again, this is where IT has full control of both the Power BI datasets and the Power BI reports. The business are pure report consumers here. But why? Why should we start with corporate BI? Well, this allows us to set a foundation with the common BI objectives of version control, scalability, usability, performance, integrity. So corporate BI places us in the best position to finally transition to the world of self-service, okay? And now some organizations may be thinking, well, they can skip this approach and go straight into self-service, as people from the business are, well, they're already creating their own reports. They've already arrived here. There's no need to go backwards, right? But apart from being able to create their own reports, it's common that departments have their own data silos, their own processes in place, and people are still arguing over which number is correct. So the point of starting with corporate BI is to pull everything back from the organization, get control of it, and only once we do have control, we start slowly releasing it back to the business as well. Now, it is easy for me to sit here and say, we know the issues and the answer is to simply follow the deployment approaches. But the real question here is, what must I do before transitioning to an IT-led self-service approach? Well, whilst we are in corporate BI, there are 10 factors that should be explored before incorporating a self-service approach. Now keep in mind, we don't need to have all these factors in place over a long period of time before transitioning to IT-led, as the more we delay, the higher the chance the business will start to take matters into their own hands. Now the first factor to consider is executive support. We will be going through a process that is very much hated and very much unwanted, and that is the process of change. Now, over the years of working in BI, I found myself involved in many bottom-up approaches, and even though some progress is made by delivering 1 or 2 projects, a complete rollout is not. So, a top-down approach is required for promoting everyone to be on board. So the communication needs to come from the top, as it ensures everyone is on the same path and working towards the same objective as well. Now, various different people will have their own daily responsibilities, so having this communication ensures that everyone understands that rolling out Power BI is not only the objective of IT or the BI team, but the entire business. The second factor to consider is data integrity. Now, there is no better way to stop people from adopting a new platform than giving them the wrong information with that same platform. And this is another reason starting with corporate BI is important, as we have all the skills to only create high integrity reports. This leads to creating a layer of trust as early on between the business and the data. Now, if this layer of trust is not built here in the early phase of corporate BI, we certainly won't build it when moving to a world of self-service, and the business are now creating their own reports. Also, ensuring high data integrity early on sets a benchmark of quality for when we moved into the self-service space. Now, I find that many people from the business always look at the corporate BI reports to validate their numbers. So we need to be sure we are setting a standard. That way, the high standard is then mirrored by those creating reports in the self-service world. The third factor to consider is the BICC, also known as the Center of Excellence. Now, the main purpose of it is to support and promote the use of business intelligence within the business. It ensures everyone, including business and IT, understand the BI strategy and the capabilities available in Power BI. But why do we need it? Well, through its many benefits, it will increase the adoption of Power BI and ensure a smoother adoption of self-service. And this should be led with the business in mind, with the support of the IT team or the BI team. Now that we have a BICC, we should find our BICC champions who will be creating reports. These are the report of the champions. Without our report of the champions, we will not be able to move to IT-led self-service. Now, who are these people? Well, they are the people who will drive and promote Power BI within the organization. Therefore, they will be getting the name out, but also they will have a pro license. Therefore, not only be able to create reports, but also be able to publish these reports to the wider organization. Now, how do we find these people? That's a common question. Well, apart from simply asking departments to nominate someone, we can identify them by looking at the people who are submitting most tickets to the support team for Power BI related tasks, by looking at the most frequently visited reports by various people. And again, this can be checked through the logs. And also keep an eye out for the people who are continuously coming to your desk or continuously reaching out to you and asking questions. These are the people who can be seen as early adopters and are self-motivated to learn Power BI, so they are great candidates for report author champions. Now that we've identified the report author champions, we must ensure the appropriate training sessions are set up for these people. They need to learn how to use Power BI Desktop, how to develop Power BI reports, how to use different charts in the right context, and of course, how to publish reports to a workspace. Now, it is absolutely important that we offer training to the report author champions, as they will be distributing content to the organization. Therefore, the more training, the more accurate the reports, the more motivated the champions will be. Therefore, continue to promote Power BI. And if we do not train them, this will end up being more of a burden than anything else. But apart from that, the business will ask the champions for assistance. Therefore, more time for BI to innovate and look into other areas of data analysis that can benefit the entire organization as well. So that's a very important factor before transitioning to IT-led self-service. Let's ensure we not only identify the champions, but we give them the relevant amount of training. The next factor to consider is a data dictionary. Now, in order to move to self-service, we need to ensure everyone is speaking the same language and no ambiguity exists. So whether you are a report consumer or a developer, everyone is using the same definition of the metrics and attributes. And again, this will be done from the data dictionary and ensuring the right people have access to this data dictionary as well. The next factor, incremental self-service. So before we transition to IT-led self-service, we should aim to roll out to a single department or a team within the organization in order to first build a success criteria. So I briefly mentioned this earlier on, but just to be clear, we are incorporating IT-led self-service, but that does not mean to the entire organization. It's not a big bang approach. Having a success criteria first allows us to run it in one place, learn the issues and rerun it to the wider organization at a later stage. Now, a common question here is, who should be moved to self-service first in that case, since we're doing it incrementally? Well, there are multiple questions to ask ourselves here, but we should always just think about the earliest return on investment. We then have training the report consumers. Now, let's not forget, the largest users of Power BI certainly won't be the BI team or the report author champions, but the consumers themselves. Therefore, it is vital that we conduct training workshops, conduct lunch and learns, and create a portal with all the information for learning Power BI, but to be bespoke for the report consumer. Now, if we do not give the report consumer the knowledge on how to use Power BI, quite simply, they will not use it. And more importantly, a successful rollout of Power BI is only capable if our report consumers are all on board as well. Moving on, we then have the champion exam. So setting up an exam for the report consumers who would want to become report author champions. Now, as you go through the process, you will need more report author champions throughout the organization, and more people will come along and say, hey, I want to be able to create reports for my team or my department too. So apart from ensuring champions have the relevant knowledge by having this sort of exam in place, having this exam also creates a sense of importance around the status of report author champion. Therefore, it motivates people to be report author champions. And that's what we want. It will create a massive space where we want to learn Power BI and push Power BI throughout the organization. Now, the last factor to consider before transition to IT-led self-service is keep Excel. So what do I mean by this? We do not want to completely remove what was previously being used by the consumers right away. Again, everyone hates change, especially when doing something for the last 2, 5 or 10 years. So let's talk to them and understand what are their worries of moving to Power BI. Previously, I was involved in scenarios where the business was pushing back against Power BI only because they thought Power BI couldn't offer the same capabilities that they were using now. So in a nutshell, whichever platform is currently being used, we should understand how it is being used and showcase the equivalent and also more that is available in Power BI too. So those were the 10 factors to consider before moving to IT-led self-service. And now that we've arrived here, let's not forget, this is where the business can now create their own reports, but the datasets are still controlled by the IT team. Now, a common question when coming to this stage is, well, do we really need to come here? Why do we need self-service in the organization? Well, there's 3 reasons why I usually raise. Firstly, this eases a lot of tension off the BI team for the standard reporting requests. It also offers quicker answers to business questions as well. But more importantly, it prevents the business from taking matters into their own hands. And by this, I mean finding data from any place they can in order to report on it. So looking at the image on screen, we can see that the foundation of corporate BI still exists, right? We're never going to remove that. And by foundation, we can see that it's symbolized by the green Lego base. But we now also have a window and a door added to the foundation, and this symbolizes walking into the self-service world. Now, a question we usually get here is, well, how do we now transition to the world of business-led self-service, the third approach, if we need to? And this is exactly what we're going to go ahead and explore now. Now, there are three factors to consider before transitioning to business-led self-service from IT-led. The first one is review. Let's make sure we are not rushing into business-led when in fact we haven't really matured in IT-led self-service. We need to make sure that so far we or our users are using Power BI. We can check the report usage logs. We need to make sure that the business is happy and positive about Power BI. We should send out maybe a survey and talk to the relevant people. We should also check if the report author champions are doing well and still receiving the training. So jumping into the last form of self-service without all the previous factors running smoothly will only enhance any existing issues that we may have. The second factor is Dataset designer champions. Now, previously we identified the report author champions as we needed people in the business to be able to create reports. But before we even think of moving to business-led, we need to ensure we have the correct people to develop datasets for the business as well. Now, how do we find such individuals? Well, they can be maybe the highest performing report author champions that want to increase their skills and learn more. Or it can be someone who is onboarded purposely to bridge the gap between the business and the data. We then have the third factor to consider, and that is training our dataset designer champions. So now that we've identified these individuals, we need to ensure we provide the correct training before moving to business-led. Now, the training for the dataset designer champion is very different from the training that we would have offered to the report author champions. So if a dataset designer champion creates a dataset and publishes it for it to be used by the report authors, any errors in that single dataset can quickly spread across the entire organization. So those were the three factors to consider before moving to business-led self-service. So as we can see through the slide on screen, we still now have the foundation, that's corporate BI. We see the door and the window, so that's the entry to the IT-led self-service. Only we have now added a roof, business-led self-service, which is the last deployment approach. So you may be thinking, well, the house is now complete. Let's go inside. Let's have a coffee and chill out. Yes, it is complete, but as we would continuously have to clean our house, it's the same way we would have to continuously or have a continuous process for business-led self-service. So we will now go ahead and explore the three factors we should always consider and always continuously stay on top of when in a business-led self-service approach. The first element to always consider is review. So we need to continuously review all the factors to ensure everything is running smoothly. So think back to the 10 factors we initially explored. So the data dictionary is still being updated. Are the report consumers being trained and using Power BI? Is the BICC functioning? Are all the relevant people attending the meetings? Are report author champions developing reports for the organization? Also, let's think back to the three factors we just explored. Are those still working? So are the dataset designers still receiving the relevant amount of training? And are the datasets that they are producing and publishing being used by the organization or by the report authors as well? The second factor we should be considering is taking transformations done in Power BI by the dataset designer champions and migrating them back to the underlying data source. Now, this minimizes the resources required to process import datasets and increases query performance for direct query. So it will take much longer to load data into memory and then apply transformations rather than apply transformations directly in the source and only load the result into Power BI. So one way to understand what to move back is by maybe checking the Office 365 logs or the report usage metrics to understand what datasets or what reports are highly used as well. The last factor to consider whilst in business-led self-service is testing, and this is to ensure some process exists. So we just spoke about migrating transformations from datasets back to the underlying source. Well, let's ensure we have a process that includes the relevant people. So the dataset design, the champion who created it, the report author who will be using it, and the report consumers who are consuming these reports. That way, when these transformations are indeed pushed back, we have the same numbers, or at least we can check that the same numbers are displayed and no surprises come to the business. We have now finished exploring the 3 Power BI deployment approaches for rolling out Power BI. I do hope you found this useful, and please do let me know if you think there are any other factors that should be considered when migrating from one approach to the other. Take care for now.